Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Here to talk all things hockey are your hosts, Brad Crisco, Ryan Hanna, and Evan Lobsinger.
All right, this is a sad episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast because with yet another coaching position available, it's becoming more and more inevitable that someone's going to hire Evan out, and it's going to be just Brad and I. So, Evan, are you gunning for this job in Washington?
If I can get across the border, yes. Well, actually, I don't even need to right now.
Yeah, coach from home?
Future Evan would worry about that.
Yeah. Well, the coaching carousel continues. And so if you do get made an offer, just let Brad and I know, and we'll try to compete with that Ted Leon's money. I don't know, Brad, how much do you have in your pockets?
I have debt.
Yeah, well, grow up. So do we all. Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. All three of us alive. My name is Ryan Hanna.
I'm Brad.
And I'm Evan.
Someone pointed out to me that on like Apple Podcasts, they have a section in there where it says like, oh, these are the hosts of the show, and it has pictures. And I was like, really? And when we migrated hosts, we had the ability to like name the host. So I put our three names in, obviously. But Apple only released that functionality apparently on a limited basis. They're like, yeah, only like some of the top podcasts, like English speaking podcasts, we're rolling this out too slowly before expanding it later on. But they never told us they did it. So our good friend Anthony was pointed out to us and was like, hey, it would help a lot for people who mix up your voices to do it. And thanks a lot, Apple. You didn't tell us. Anyways, we're going to try and update that for you guys so you can see just how ugly we are. We'll use Evan's real picture, but Brad and I will use pictures of whoever we want. I'll probably do Oscar Isaac, and Brad, I was thinking for you, Matt Damon.
I'm absolutely okay with that.
All right, some hockey stuff happened. So on this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast, of course, we're going to be talking about the playoffs. We'll take a look back into the first round, which just concluded. It is incredible the clip at which this thing is moving. And then we'll be looking forward to the second round. Obviously, it's already started with Dallas and Colorado playing last night. Talk about some stuff that's been happening around the world of hockey. Do a fun prospect profile. Evan's going to be a really big fan of this one before heading into overtime. All right. The first round is done. I would like to say that even though I went a miserable 2 for 8 in the play-in qualifiers with my predictions, I did go 6 for 8 in the first round, and I nailed the amount of games in 3 of those. So I feel like I'm redeemed there.
I'm a little shocked Washington didn't make the comeback and ruined that pick for me, but can't win them all.
I can't even remember who I picked.
I know. I usually have to write them down, but I didn't do it for that episode, so we'll have to go back and listen to remember what you guys picked. Anyways, not too many upsets in that, though. Like Vegas over Chicago, yeah. Colorado thumped Arizona. Yeah, Dallas and Calgary was a tight series. Dallas was down, was it 3-0 in Game 6?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and won by 4.
Who scores 7 unanswered goals?
Dallas.
That is the most Calgary situation that I can think of. Like a team that's just been like mired with dysfunction and just letting things go, even though they have all the tools to keep it up. And then they let in 7 unanswered.
Speaking of dysfunctional, the NHL's trying to get parity in the NHL, and 5 of the 8 series went 5 games, and none of them went to 7.
I think that's just a little bit.
Well, so we'll make it better. We'll give the playoff teams first overall, and then those series will be closer.
Exactly. Absolutely right. Can't wait to see the New York Rangers losing 7 in the first round next year.
I think it was just like a little bit of an anomaly that this many went 5 games, and I think it's also a byproduct of the play-in round, right? Like, you're going to get wacky results no matter what after a play-in round in which you naturally had non-playoff versus playoff teams. I don't know.
The funny thing is, of the series, the 3 series that went deeper than 5 games, the lowest seed in the entire play-in round was one of them.
Yeah, nothing makes sense right now.
Like, not a damn thing.
No. Vancouver, Vancouver over St. Louis isn't that big of an upset. Like, I just want to put that out there. Vancouver was riding some kind of wave, and obviously with the amount of star power that they have, you have to think it just takes them firing on all cylinders, which is essentially what they did. St. Louis wasn't playing their best hockey, and they took that in 6 games. So I personally had St. Louis, I think, moving on to, the next round, but it's not really crazy to have Vancouver win it. Honestly, Vancouver's fun to watch right now, too.
Oh, they're fun to watch, but do you know who was the real most valuable player for Vancouver in that series, though?
Who?
Jordan Binnington.
Yeah, he sucked.
Yikes, yeah. Not good.
It's almost like if you base your entire opinion off a goalie over half a season, it might not be a lock. He's being projected in a lot of things as like a Team Canada for the next Olympics. And man, I wasn't a Binnington detractor by any means, but I also wasn't ready to anoint the guy. And oh my God, he was there's bad. And then there's literally your team is out because you suck bad. And that is where he was at. Not that St. Louis was playing amazing, but they were playing better than getting ousted in 6 games. And here we are. We have oh man, this whole offseason, that actually, on that note, this whole offseason, this goalie carousel factored in with the shortened offseason because of COVID is going to be chaos. Absolute chaos. How many teams will have a new starting goalie next year?
Yeah,
Probably
it's going to be wild.
Probably a bunch. How many teams are going to have a new backup goalie next year? Probably over half the league. How many of those backups are guys that used to be starters? It will probably be a lot. I mean, everybody who's clamoring for Detroit to get out a big name goalie, they can literally sit there and wait for every other team to get a guy, and they'll probably still be sitting there with 4 or 5 decent options.
Yeah. It's such a bizarre year for goaltending. Like, I'm thinking of the Marc-Andre Fleury situation, and we will get to that in a couple minutes here. But yeah, okay, Binnington last year was the hot topic. He had a few like huge games, right? And that was really the title of his entire storyline, that playoff, that postseason run. You looked at his overall numbers, and he was good. I think he was good, not great. Like, he wasn't absolutely stupendous every single game. Like, he was decidedly average at times, but at no time was he any worse than sufficient. And I think we talked about this last offseason when they were talking about signing Jordan Binnington. We said, like, sign him. Yeah, for sure. He looks like he's able, and that's better than what St. Louis has been able to say in some time. But don't base your entire projection of him off one hot streak in the playoffs. You guys remember when Jonathan Ericsson came into the league? He was like, much like Darren Helm when he came in, he essentially, like, it was mostly a playoffs. That was really his debut.
I'd rather
he looked stellar. He was playing with Nicholas Lidstrom.
That would do it.
But he looked great. And it's not to say anyone will always be bad and Jordan Binnington is bad from here on out. No, of course, goalies are wacky, but you really cannot. I don't know. I wasn't completely shocked. I think anybody with half an ounce of reason could have said that Binnington wouldn't be able to carry this team the way people expected him to after the last playoffs, year in and year out.
And
if you had said that 2 months ago, you'd have been labeled a heretic.
It's pretty easy to, I hate to say it, but enjoy the crash and burn of Jordan Binnington, especially with all the sound bites he has.
I should have won the called over Pettersson.
Yeah.
Do I look nervous? No, you look like you're relaxed because you don't have any more hockey to play.
Yeah, so a lot of the comments online have been in favor of this collapse for Jordan Binnington.
And it's crazy to think now because we're less than a month removed from talking about Jake Allen being a prime candidate for Detroit to take on a salary dump. If you're St. Louis, can you do that now? Do you move Jake Allen? He had a solid playoff. I mean, they want to keep Pietrangelo, and if they keep both goalies, there's a 0% chance that's going to happen unless they move like a marquee player. Oh boy, are they going to have a decision to make.
I think they move Jake Allen no matter what. I think they're too far into the whole Binnington basket. And I don't even think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, you can be worse off than having Binnington as your starting goalie. Evan, are the summer allergies bad right now?
Yes. And it was just before this podcast started.
No, you can do worse than having Binnington as your starting goalie, and I think they have bigger things to worry about right now than trying to make a better goalie than they have out of those two. And like you said, they want to keep Pietrangelo. I still think Jake Allen is...
They have bigger things to worry about? I will disagree with that strongly. Goaltending, yeah, obviously the Pietrangelo situation is very relevant and it's a big thing, but they're still a great team without Pietrangelo. Not as great, but they're still good. Their defense isn't thin. Their goaltending was their undoing this year. So I don't know if they have a bigger decision to make. Jordan Binnington's going into year 2 of a 2-year contract that leads into unrestricted free agency. Jake Allen's got 2 or 3 years left at a pretty reasonable cap hit. He's a very hot and cold goalie, but apparently so is Binnington. Man, the pragmatic view here is keep Allen, keep your cost certainty, and honestly, you probably get a higher return on Binnington, but from an optics standpoint, I think the fan base would lose their collective shit if you did that, but you can never make a decision based on what the fan base would think. Yeah. That being said, if they don't bring back Pietrangelo, then they can ride 2 goalies, but I don't think they're wanting to do that.
Yeah, so they have almost $9 million locked up between Jake Allen and Binnington. And I was surprised to see Binnington's only 3 years younger than Jake Allen, who's 30. So
Jake Allen's 30?
Yeah, it feels like
when
Jake
did
Allen's
that happen?
38. Feels like Jake Allen's been around forever.
Binnington's he's only a few years younger, right? You said?
27? Yeah, he's 27.
Yeah. Look,
I think they explore both options, moving either or.
Yeah, I can see that. But look what Brad said, though. The narrative is still that Binnington is the goalie of the future for them. And if he's 27, goalies get leeway until 34 before people really start to talk about them not being as useful in net. You kind of have to go for a guy who hasn't been shelled publicly like Jake Allen has, who hasn't had as many public failures or letdowns in terms of play on the ice as Jake Allen had. So whether or not you believe in Allen over Binnington, they'll for sure explore the option in case someone is willing to pay for Binnington, because right now it doesn't matter how well they played. I think in a perfect world where there's buyers for goalies, someone would pay for Binnington, but even though he makes just the same amount, Jake Allen, they would have to pay to get rid of Jake Allen. You know what I mean? It's not really it's kind of all wacky.
Teams that are looking for a goalie are not going to have to trade for a goalie this offseason. There are going to be more than enough options.
There's almost never enough buyers in the goalie market.
And you could probably get some pretty decent cheap options there. Dallas is riding Khudobin through the playoffs right now. Even though he's a backup, he's doing a great job, and he's been really good for a couple of years now in his, albeit limited games in the regular season. He's a UFA. Thomas Greiss is a UFA. The Canucks haven't re-signed Jakob Markstrom yet. Robin Leonard's a UFA. I think Corey Crawford's a UFA.
The amount of UFA goalies, I pulled that up before while we were talking. Braden Holtby, Corey Crawford, Robin Lehner, Craig Anderson, Jimmy Howard, Matt Murray, Jacob Markstrom, Thomas Greiss, Cam Talbot, Khudobin, Mike Smith, Aaron Dell, Keith Kincaid, Laurent Brossois, Louis Domingue, Ryan Miller. That's a name I haven't heard in a while. Malcolm Subban. There's so many goalies available. So,
Detroit's not going to have a problem. If they want to move on from Jimmy Howard, fine. They're not going to have a problem signing their Bernier 2.0. Make Bernier your starter, and that's it. The amount of stuff there. I would still, I think, having Jake Allen getting something in return for taking on the Jake Allen contract is the most preferable, because I want Detroit to do that whenever possible. But yeah, listen to all those guys that Evan rattled off and think about how bad the current Red Wings are. And I'm sorry if you don't like hearing it, but let's be real. You don't need a stellar goalie. You have so many options there. Lehner would be the top end of them. They probably won't even go for Lehner because he'll be too expensive. They'll probably get a Cam Talbot or something. I don't know. They don't need much.
And of the premium goalies, the legit starting caliber goalies that are going on the market, every one of them but one. So the team that they're leaving already has their heir apparent in place. Obviously, Vancouver wants to keep Markstrom, but if they can't, Thatcher Demko's there ready to go. Holtby leaves Washington. Ilya Samsonov is there. Leonard leaves Vegas. They still have Marc-Andre Fleury. Matt Murray leaves Pittsburgh. They have Tristan Jarry. Chicago's the only one where if they lose Crawford, they don't really have the guy ready to go behind them. So that's what makes this market even. Yeah, right. But that's what makes this market truly crazy. It's that the teams that are losing the big name goalies might not be the teams in the market for a goalie. Like, that's what's going to make this. So the market's going to get flooded. Now, mind you, there are teams that probably are going to look long and hard at getting a starting goalie because they have problems looking gestures at the entire province of Alberta. But it's going to be chaos. Like, you can argue right now, the Red Wings don't need a starting goalie after the year Bernier had. They need a backup because they literally don't have an option right now. But, like, again, if I'm Detroit, I'm not looking at the UFA market. I'm trying to find that team that's in salary cap hell and weaseling a goalie out of them. Like, if St. Louis, if nobody is even contemplating a trade and St. Louis wants to keep Pietrangelo, despite how good Jake Allen was in the playoffs, you're still probably giving up a third or a fourth round pick to get rid of that contract. And if I'm Detroit, honestly, assets aside, Jake Allen might be the best option because he's one of the youngest of the group. Mm-hmm. And he's going to come in at a very reasonable cap hit for a pretty decent goalie. You combine him and Bernier, and they're what, just north of $7 million? That's perfectly acceptable for a goaltending tandem. And you have two hot and cold goalies in Bernier and Allen. Okay. Well, if they're hot and cold, you only need one of them to be hot at a time. So I'm not saying it's an ideal tandem, but coming out of a rebuild, more than acceptable.
What I want from Detroit, if it's not like, you know, let's say pie in the sky Markstrom or Demko and some kind of bigger trade from Vancouver, or who else am I thinking of? Like, say they don't sign Lehner, I'd rather have sign someone for like $1 million, like $1.5 million for a year. Unless it's like Allen coming over and they're getting a good asset, like a decent, you know, sweetener to take on the contract, because that's still $4.5 million or whatever Jake Allen makes. I'd rather just have him sign someone for $1 million, because like we saw, Jonathan Bernier is more than able to do what he needs to do to just get through the season with this team.
Well, the Red Wings don't really want Jake Allen. No. They want what's coming with Jake Allen.
Yeah, they want the sidecar.
Well, yeah. Jake Allen will be useful, though. It's not like Jake Allen's a dead asset coming over. He's like, Bernier's not a 60-game starter. If Jake Allen comes over, that's going to be a 50-30 split. But even if they don't want to go that route, even if St. Louis doesn't want to go that route, or any of the other teams in cap hell don't want to go that route, Detroit could probably get a pretty good option. Like I said, if every team that needs a goalie signs someone, and then there's literally probably going to be 3 or 4 very good options still sitting there that are going to be desperate for a contract. Forget getting long-term and big money. If the dust settles and Anton Khudobin is still sitting there and he's looking around the NHL going, I have no opportunities unless I want to back up a superstar, he might look at Detroit and go, 3x3? Sure. Why not?
I don't know if I'd give Anton Khudobin 3x3. He's not young, right?
He's not young, but the Detroit Red Wings don't have a goalie past next season. And that's not even hyperbole. They don't have a goalie. And at least with Khudobin, you have a really good idea of what he is as a goalie. So if he's nothing other than a stopgap, fine.
So speaking of, actually, you guys want to know what's going to end up happening for Detroit? They're going to bring back Howard.
Probably. Oh, yeah. All the fun possibilities, and they'll keep Jimmy.
While we were talking about, you know, cap hell situations, I came across something a little bit interesting. So Toronto spends 57 million on forwards. The next highest team on forwards is actually the Nashville Predators, and I don't know why I was surprised by that. They have
I know why we're surprised by that.
They have $54 million lined up with their forwards.
Jesus. With
Pittsburgh just slightly behind, but yeah, Toronto's well ahead of everybody else.
And again, teams are going to have not only this $81.5 million cap, their owners are going to say, hey, I just bled money for 9 months. Please, we can't even spend $81.5 million for the next 2 years. They're going to say cap it at 80, cap it at 78.5, something like that. Detroit, I've said it before, we'll continue to say it again. Steve Yzerman's biggest opportunity right now has not been through any of the drafts. It has been through his opportunity now to squeeze teams that are in cap hell. It is hard to do it, and it's notable when it happens. Like, we are still talking about Toronto giving up a first to get rid of Marleau, but it happens. And that's what Yzerman's going to try to do. And he's said before, like, this is what he cares about. Like, he cares a lot about this. Obviously, he was pissed off about the draft lottery, but this is within his control. So, yeah, the goalies are one like insight into that. But like Evan mentioned, there's teams that are in cap hell.
Speaking of goalies, pop quiz, which team spends the most on their goalies?
Hold on. I know this is going to be a trick question.
There's 3 options.
Hold on.
Montreal.
I'm going to say Montreal or Florida immediately came to mind just because of how much Price and Bobrovsky are making.
It's Montreal. Montreal is 11-5 and Florida is 10-8-5. But Rangers are just on the heels at 10-2.
So that means Florida's backup goalie makes
$5.
Yeah.
He's working part-time down at the Shake Shack.
I was going to say the Howard thing, and then I was trailing off. Right. The other goalie controversy right now is going on with Marc-Andre Fleury. And this isn't a new thing. Like, we'll talk about the Aaron Walsh tweet in just a second here, but for a little while now, people have been kind of appalled. Not Vegas fans. Vegas fans who are watching the team understand that Robin Lehner was obviously going to be the guy because he's playing significantly better. But people have been like appalled at the fact that Marc-Andre Fleury isn't starting or playing as much as might be expected. And it's like, it's not even just like casual fans. It's been like reporters. It's been like talking heads, and everyone's like, how could Vegas do this to Marc-Andre Fleury? Like, after what he did for the team? I'm like, guys,
what did he do? He's an employee.
He put up a 905 this season. Like, he's just not playing better. What is
he put up the biggest 905 behind one of the best teams in the league?
Yeah. And like, that defense isn't a joke. Like, that's a great team. You have Mark Stone as one of your best players, and he's a great defensive forward. Like, it's an easy to do. I'm sorry, not easy, but if you're an elite goalie, you should be having a better season than 905. And look, Marc-Andre Fleury's no spring chicken. Like, he's had a wonderful Hall of Fame career for sure. But how could you be shocked about that? I just didn't understand people's shock. Like, he's just not playing well.
It was kind of like the Pekka Rinne situation where people were shocked. I mean, he did have that streak of games played, but everyone was shocked that they went with Saros, who I thought had been, the better of the 2 goalies. It's like people have this weird fascination with, you always stick with the guy who's been between the pipes for longer. And
yeah,
if I was a Knights fan, I'd be like, I would just want who's ever hot right now. Play the hot goalie. Play the guy who's playing better. I want to win.
Fleury's won a cup behind a hot goalie that usurped him at the playoffs before. Like, that's what happened with him and Matt Murray.
It's been a long time since Marc-Andre Fleury was a consistently top-end goalie. Last time he put together back-to-back 920-plus seasons was, actually looking at this, was 14-15 and 15-16, and those are... And he's only put up north of a 923 times since 2008.
But he did get Mike Babcock fired.
That is, and we are.
That's not in the
stats,
for that. But it needs
for
to be
now. For now,
yeah, we'll get into that. But
look,
I mean, Robin Lehner has been arguably the best goalie on the planet for the last 2 years. He put up a 930 in the Island last year, and then he put up a 918 in Chicago this year, playing behind a bottom 5 defense in the NHL. There is no argument here. There is almost none. You don't have a leg to stand on other than say Marc-Andre Fleury was the first face of the franchise for Vegas. That was 3 years ago. Like, it's not like he's been here for 12 years and it's Ray Bourque seeing his path to the cup. It's this guy has aged poorly, and it's not his fault. He's 35, 36 years old. Of
I don't even
course.
think he's aged poorly.
And he's played so many playoff games. He's been on Olympic teams. He's been on World Junior teams. Like, the guy's played an unbelievable amount of hockey.
And also, what do we know? We know 2 things. First, goalies are going to be streaky, even the best of them. Carey Price people were mocking others for saying Carey Price could be a game breaker before the Pittsburgh series. Meanwhile, Carey Price in terms of raw talent, is probably the most talented goalie on the planet. That's how streaky goalies are. 2, what is the easiest way a coach can ruin his team's playoff run? By being stubborn and playing a goalie who just isn't playing well at that moment. And it's so stupid to hang on to that, because it's fine that they're not playing well. It doesn't mean you have to give up on them for the rest of their career, but literally you have 16 to 30, whatever, 16 to however many games, that you need to play to win the Stanley Cup. Are you really not going to just bite the bullet and play the hot hand at the time when every win counts? This isn't game 50 in the regular season. Yeah, I think people were looking for a narrative with the whole Fleury thing. And then it all got amplified to the moon when his agent, Alan Walsh, who, anyone who's on Twitter or pays attention to the hockey, social sphere, knows Alan Walsh, and he posted a beautifully photoshopped picture of Marc-Andre Fleury with a presumably Golden Knight sword stabbed through his back and coming out the front with blood on it.
That said DeBoer on the
the hilt or something. Yeah.
Listen,
look, it was metal as hell. It was dope.
And Alan Walsh always says, we'll call him, I don't even know what the right word is, inflammatory things on Twitter. Quite often he just
I believe the word is unprofessional.
Huh. Yeah. Not the type of guy I would want representing me, but he's got a decent client base, so whatever.
Look, I think the guy gets good deals for his clients, I'll say that.
Oh, yeah, he can be an expert negotiator. He is also a crazy person, apparently, because why would you post that in the middle of a playoff run where your client is trying to win a Stanley Cup? I don't care if you agree what the team's doing. You are actively hurting your client's chances. And I'm calling Fleury a client here because that's what he is, and I want to underscore that. You are hurting your client's chances of what he is trying to do. Whether or not he's a main piece in that or a background piece, he probably would rather be the backup of a Stanley Cup champion than the starter on a team that got bounced in the first round. And you can say, oh, I'm just sticking up for my client. Great. There is no way that the Vegas brass saw this and weren't furious when it happened. There is no way the Vegas coaching staff saw this and wasn't furious the way it happened. His teammates were probably pissed because they're like, oh, great, now we're going to have to answer these questions. Alan Walsh did nothing good for his client here. If you wanted Fleury to start, what better way than to get him some games than to piss off the guy who makes that decision? It is just moronic from a business standpoint, from a professionalism standpoint. Hell, if Marc-Andre Fleury is your friend, if you consider him a friend, as a friend, it's a dick move.
Do you know that Marc-Andre Fleury didn't want that to happen at first?
The tweet has since been deleted as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Fleury probably saw it and went, what the hell?
Fleury said he talked to him and it's been deleted, but it took some time. And so definitely Fleury didn't go, what the hell? This is purely conjecture for me.
Unless he was living in a bubble.
He turned off the Wi-Fi as soon as it happened.
Here's what I think. I think Fleury's been displeased. And I think you can kind of glean that from the fact that this narrative has been carrying on for so long. Because why would people care this much? Like, it's not a brand new storyline. I think he's been displeased and he's probably been pretty ticked about it. He's probably talked to Walsh about it.
Oh, absolutely.
I just don't see. I think, yeah, for sure, Walsh is inflammatory. I don't think he tweets that without Fleury, in his ear about how pissed off he is and how upset he is and how could the team do this. And also, look, the team canceled all of their media availability and sent out Fleury alone. They said, hey, you fucked this up, go fix it. They put him out there alone. I don't think Fleury's I don't think he was this couldn't have been out of left field for him. And that tweet did not come down fast. It did not come down fast. He did ask him to take it down eventually. Yeah.
Well, there's a difference, though, between Fleury being in his ear about being unhappy. Of course, he wants to be the starter. He's not the starter. I'd be more concerned if he wasn't pissed off about it. But there is a hell of a leap from talking to the GM saying, hey, Marc-Andre's pissed. Then absolutely flaming his coach for the entire world to see. That is like saying, I think I need to get the brakes done on the car. So you torch it. It's a big reach there.
If Marc-Andre Fleury ever does play another game for the Golden Knights, he better have one hell of a performance to make people forget, because I would hate for that to be his tarnishing moment for this team.
Like, if I was the GM, if I was McCrimmon and that tweet got sent out, I'd call Fleury in the office and go, so I hear you're unhappy about not playing. To which I'm sure Marc-Andre Fleury would say, yeah, of course I am. I would literally just have a printout of his stats from this season, and I would just slide it across the table and ask, and then be like, okay, anything else? Like, what's the rebuttal there? Oh, yeah, I've been here for longer. Oh, great. Well, he's playing better.
All right. Looking around at the rest of the series going on. So we have Vegas and Vancouver, Colorado against Dallas, and Dallas has already taken game one, kind of shockingly. Tampa and Boston, and then Philly and the Islanders. So let's make our picks. I'm going to continue with just like what my bracket was, but you can feel free to adjust it. And then we'll say in how many games as well. So I have Vegas over Vancouver. I'll take that to 6 games. And I also have Colorado over Dallas in 6 games. I have Philly over the Islanders in 7. And I have Tampa over Boston in 5.
Well, who was it that Washington effed up my whole bracket? So my Eastern Conference final is currently playing each other. So I'll go Tampa in 7. I'll go Philly in 6. I'll go Colorado in 7. And I will go Vegas in 6.
I was trying to remember who I picked previously as to not, have some recency bias or some revisionist history. I think I had Vegas and Philly in the finals, and I only feel good about half of that, but I'll take Vegas in 6. I'll take Colorado in 6. I think I had Tampa over Boston, which is not looking good right now because they're down 2-0.
Oops.
In game 1. Yeah. I'll take Tampa, I guess, in 7. And probably the most boring series, I think, the Philly Islanders series. I got to take Philly because I think I had them in the finals. I'll say them in 7, even though I think I like the Islanders better now.
The Barry Trotz coached Islanders. Barry Trotz obviously leaving for the Island after winning a Stanley Cup with Washington and then not getting brought back. The issue was not only money, but also term. Barry Trotz and his agent wanted 5 years for big money. Washington was okay about the money, but they were not okay with the term. I can understand that, but having just today fired head coach that succeeded Barry Trotz, Todd Reardon, do they ever regret not bringing back Barry Trotz? Because he is getting the absolute best out of that New York Islanders team, and Washington got trounced.
Is that back-to-back first-round losses for Washington?
Yep.
With almost the same team?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whoops.
Yeah, Barry Trotz is no slouch.
And apparently he's a really good guy, too. Like, everybody loves him. I think that was one of the reasons why he was in Nashville, right?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons why he stayed there just for so long, is because how do you get rid of a guy that everybody likes?
He was there for 4 years in Washington before this hypothetical contract extension after he won the cup. And so they were saying, what are the chances a coach lasts 9 years? And I think that's perfectly fair in today's coaching climate. Like, how does a coach last 9 years, especially for big money? And people are seeing, like, after Babcock broke the coaching market and got signed for big money, now people are on the hook for these massive contracts, but they're still firing coaches just as quickly. So Babcock's making what? Like, someone posted like $18,000 a day right now to sit on the couch. Like, he's not just sitting on the couch, of course. I think he's helping with a college program down in Vermont. I can't remember what school. And great, but Toronto's still paying him to do nothing. So I understand Washington's
That's why our internet bills went up $4 a month.
God, so annoying. But still, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone from a casual Capitals fan all the way up to owner Ted Leonsis who would care right now about how much they'd have to pay Barry Trotz for how long. They'd probably kill to have him back as coach.
Yeah, more than a little at this point.
Yeah, so I looked up the longest tenured current coaches.
Oh, I know this.
We
know
this. Yeah.
So John Cooper is number one. He's been on since 2013. Paul Maurice 2014, and then none other than Jeff Blashill, June 9th, 2015. Third longest tenured coach in the NHL.
It's been 5 years. It's been 5 years.
Oh boy.
Oh my God.
Not great. Not great.
Worst for like in Jeff's defense, and I don't say that often. Worst time ever. Worst time to inherit any team in the NHL, June 9th, 2015, Detroit Red Wings, right?
Absolutely.
It's got it.
Yep.
That guy's not even close to having a good team again.
they gave him a ladle and threw him on a sinking ship.
Whether or not you're a Jeff Blashill detractor or a Jeff Blashill, stan, whatever you want to call it, there's no way that he's going to be the coach by the time this team is good again, because it will have been almost a decade in my mind before this team competes again. Anyways, Todd Reirden out in Washington. Candidates. A lot of people immediately said Gerard Gallant, and I think that's a great choice. Think he would do well there. I think much like Barry Trotz did in Washington before him and then now on the island, he's a guy who can get the most out of his team a lot of the time, or so he would think. More of a guy who wants to be a winner, does well with a team with the tools rather than having to build players up. But Craig Custance tweeted that Mike Babcock might be looked at here. Is it too soon for Mike Babcock's return?
Yes. It's always going to be too soon for Mike Babcock's return, because I don't care what you think of him as a coach after the crap he pulled and the reports that came out. In today's day and age, you can't. You can't. How would your players feel about that if the guy, for having a reputation, is treating his players worse than anybody else since the 70s, is coming in? Especially in a team like Washington, where it's such like a personality-driven team with Ovechkin and Wilson, etc. Man, you bring in Babcock, he either has to prove he is a very changed man, or he will lose that room so quick. But beyond the logistics of how he would be as a coach in Washington, I don't care. He should never get another job. This NHL carousel of recycling the same 35 coaches over and over and over and over is a joke. There are so many quality candidates out there that are not in the NHL. Why do we keep going back to the same well over and over and over? And you could even argue that Babcock isn't even a good coach. He's had the reputation because he's won, but he hasn't won shit when he hasn't had an all-star team in front of him. I'll still argue his minimum number of cups with Detroit should have been 3, 06, 08, and 09. And he got 1 out of it. He's got the gold medals with Team Canada. Cool. I'm pretty sure Mika could have coached those teams to a gold medal. When the chips were down in Toronto, they never got past the first round. I'm sorry. A career of mediocrity, and he gets another look despite being one of the this is all reports talking, one of the shittiest human beings in hockey. I'm sorry. No. If
100% will.
I know he will. He's going to get another job, and it's probably going to be soon. But if you're a team if there's a dumpster fire team, like Buffalo, hypothetically, where they just can't figure it out and they're like, that's it, we need to bring in the Iron Fist. Okay, I'll still disagree with it, but I'll at least see the logic there.
If you ever want to make Jack Eichel leave Buffalo quicker, I think that would be it.
Yeah. Again, I disagree if that happens, but I'll see the logic there. With a team as good as Washington still in their window, it's absolutely stupid. They need a just legitimate good coach to keep this team on the right path. They don't need whatever the hell you want to classify Mike Babcock as coming in.
Well, you also have to look who's making this decision, right? Because at some point, someone made the executive decision to say, look, Barry Trotz has done well. He brought us our cup. Obviously, this guy deserves all the money and the praise in the world, but we're not willing to do it for the term. And the thing that makes this decision easier is we have Todd Reirden in the ranks waiting, and we are 100% confident in his abilities as next head coach. So someone looked at Todd Reirden, assessed him. It was essentially a job interview and said, yep, he's our next guy. Obviously, that turned out to be a failure. And so is that person making this call too? Because I would not be surprised if the same person who made that call would also make the Mike Babcock call. I don't know if that's Ted Leon's thing. I don't know who made that call. I don't know if that was the general manager in Washington. I don't know, but it's not out of this world. Like the carousel exists for reasons because it's the same people making these decisions. I don't know. I don't think we're going to get too crazy with this pick. I think it's just going to be like Gallant or Babcock type. I think Gallant's much more likely.
Gallant makes a ton of sense because you know what's different with him? He has a very recent track record of success.
Yeah. Even outside of all the character issues with Mike Babcock, it's like you mentioned, Brad, a lot of mediocrity with Detroit in the face of, times when he should have had more success, and even bigger indictment, doing nothing with Toronto. Nothing.
I mean, no one can do anything with Toronto, so.
No, I think that curse is deeper than Mike Babcock.
Game 7, trailing 18 minutes for Austin Matthews. That should disqualify him from any future you have at worst a top 5 goal scorer on planet Earth, and you're playing Patrick Marleau, the corpse of Patrick Marleau, more than him in literally the only game that matters that whole year because it's Game 7, do or die. We've seen this crap in Detroit, so it's not new to us, but that alone should disqualify him from ever being an NHL head coach again because it's just stupid. It's proof that an old dog can't learn new tricks.
All right, let's do our prospect profile now because I think it's a good one and I want to give it some time. This one at special request from Evan, who is looking forward to drafting this player multiple times in every mock draft. None other than Anton Lundell out of Finland. Brad, you kick us off.
The age-old argument of production versus the eye test. And Anton Lundell, when you watch him play hockey, you'll never hear the word exciting. You'll never hear the word flashy. But as an 18-year-old in Liga, one of the top leagues in the world last year, he put up 28 points in 44 games. That's not far off Barkov, Laine type production in that league. I think obviously, Lundell's a late birthday. I can't remember if Barkov and Laine were. But he produces. He's got a great 200-foot game. Good shot. Not an overly amazing skater, but not poor. Great positionally. Good passer. He's kind of... It sells him short, but I always describing Lundell as the jack of all trades, master of none. There's really no part of the game that I would classify him as poor. Obviously, he has his strengths, which to me would be his vision, IQ, and shot, but he's not bad at anything I didn't mention. So he's one of those guys that you can project pretty safely into an NHL lineup, probably as a middle 6 center. Where that ceiling is, I don't know. I don't think it's crazy high, but I think he could play. Like, if everything goes... I always hate these hyperbole comparisons, but if everything goes exactly right for Anton Lundell, you see a lot of Patrice Bergeron in him. Not saying he will be Patrice Bergeron, but if you get 90% of Patrice Bergeron out of that, that's a home run pick in the 10 to 15 range. So I don't know. Lundell intrigues me. I like him a lot. I like smart players like him. I wish he'd flash a bit more skill than he does, but I mean, he's producing in one of the top men's leagues in the world already. And one of the crazy things for HIFK's upcoming season, he's been named an assistant captain of that team.
Yeah, this is a guy who I think a lot of people are pushing really hard to not discount. They talk about a ceiling not being as low as people might want to make it. I don't think he's like, this guy at best is a third line center. I don't think he'll turn into Patrice Bergeron, but that's not the comparison Brad is making. He's doing that thing we do on this podcast where we say, if everything goes right, this guy reaches his maximum potential. That might be what you get. And that, to me, that just signals that this is a guy who's responsible in almost every facet of his game. A lot's been made of his skating. I don't think it's that bad. A lot has been made of his, offensive instinct in terms of he doesn't quite always turn it on, but I've seen a lot of skill from him. It's not like the high point of his game. I think jack of all trades, master of none was a perfect assessment from Brad. Let's say Detroit drafted him. I don't think you're looking at a guy who's likely to be better than Larkin, but he'd be one hell of a second line center if he did pan out. And that is a pretty great pick to make in the range where Anton Lundell is going to go, which I think is anywhere from 8 to 15. I think it's a safe range for him. I think he slots in nicely there. I think that makes sense as to why I think that makes sense compared to his skill and his ability and what he's done. He might not jump out at you, but you look at what he's accomplished at a young age in a pro men's league in Finland, like Brad mentioned, and it's impressive. You can't look past it. He might not, knock your socks off every single night, but at the same time, I don't know. He's displayed enough for me to feel really confident if I'm one of those teams that doesn't have the luxury of picking, all the way up to Rossi or Holtz or the end of that tier. Lundell is a great player to pick in there. And if he's playing center, that does add value to it. I know a lot of people don't necessarily think so, but I think this is the guy who does project as a center.
Yeah, you guys essentially covered it all. I think he's one of the safest picks in the top 15. Obviously, Alexis Lafreniere and the top 4 are ultra safe picks, but I think his game transitions well enough to play in the bottom 6, but he also has a little bit of top 6 potential as well. So very high floor, ceiling kind of a bit of a question mark, but if you're a team and everything in the draft and all the players before have been picked, he could be a very good piece to add some depth in your prospect pool.
I also noticed something in his game. This was pretty early on, and I just didn't really focus too much on it. But then I saw that Scott Wheeler mentioned it in his write-ups, and he noticed he had a little bit of a funny skating stance, and it's one that could be improved on if he spent some time with a skating coach, or a lot of teams will focus on that kind of thing. And for a fact that teams who are looking to pick this guy in that range are saying, yeah, Anton Lundell might be a top 5 or 6 worthy pick that we're going to get at 11 or 13. We just have to get his skating up to scuff. So it's almost good news when you have a guy who has average to passable skating, but then you find out that they have a funny stance. It's essentially unlock speed. You get them to convert their skating, their strides into more power and less into, wacky sideways movement, then you can make more of that player. So that's what people are talking about when they talk about improving skating. It's easier said than done. Not everyone can do it. A lot of it's muscle memory, and some people just don't have the physical ability to do it. But that's potentially something that they might be able to get more out of him from. And like I mentioned before, I don't think his offensive ability is so invisible where it's not worth mentioning. He's responsible in his own zone. I don't think his ceiling is as high as the top 6 or 7. But I don't think it's terribly far off. The right system, I can see this guy being a fantastic pick. Anyways.
Yep.
Where do you think he goes?
I think he's going to go in the 10 to 12 range personally, because there's such a diverse cluster of players in that range. You can, look at your small, high skill forwards. You've got Lundell, the more reliable two-way center. You've got maybe your Jake Sanderson, your Askarov in that range. So it's just going to be whatever flavor the team's looking for. So, and obviously a two-way center appeals to a lot of teams. So basically from Buffalo on, I could see every team in that range taking a long look at Lundell.
He was mocked pick 13 to Carolina. So we have him below the Askarov line, which is pick 9 to Minnesota.
Okay.
I don't know. I think in reality, he's probably going to go before Quinn or Jarvis.
I Likely, just because teams value him a little more, and it's not like a crazy center-heavy draft either, so.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say because like Askarov to Minnesota and Sanderson to Winnipeg at 9 and 10 respectively makes a lot of sense, right? But those are both guys who teams could reach heavy for. I can't in my like heart of hearts say that any team above them should be taking those guys. But this is the NHL draft. It's completely unpredictable. And if a team is hot to trot on their goalie of the future, or they think Jake Sanderson is an even better prospect than Jamie Drysdale, they'll go in the top 5 or 6. Absolutely, they will. And we'll all be shocked, and some team will get a steal. And in 5 years, we'll say that's a fantastic pick, or wow, that was idiotic from the start. That's just the way it goes. Red Wings fans, well, that's what we're doing now with Moritz Seider. But yeah, I just, that's the kind of thing that's going to affect Lundell a lot. Like, there's just too much traffic ahead of him. Otherwise, you would see him move up.
Strong. It's a strong draft. I know we've repeated that over and over ad nauseum. It is a really, really strong draft, and he is a victim of that, if you want to call it that.
Is that which pick of Carolina's is Toronto's? It's not pick 13, is it?
Yep.
It's pick 13?
Yep.
There is a chance Sanderson's available at 13, and who would be better for Toronto than Jake Sanderson right now?
Oh God, I don't think Sanderson gets that far.
I don't think so, but it's not crazy.
Oh, it's not crazy at all, but would not put money on the table for that to happen.
Anyhow, all right. Anything else before we jump into overtime here?
I got nothing.
All right. Overtime. This is, it's Sunday. All right. We're going to start off with Patreon. All of our patrons get their comments read out on air as our way of saying thank you for supporting the show. Also, patrons, you'll notice on Twitter we posted something. We are doing a giveaway sponsored by Upper Deck. We're giving away 2 hockey cards, as Brad called them, the captain and the future captain. So that's a Steve Yzerman and a Dylan Larkin set of cards. So on Twitter, we posted a picture of them as well. Patrons, you're entered into the contest. Check out the post to figure out how to get additional entries. Excited to give those away, and more Upper Deck sponsored giveaways to come. All right, we're going to start with LeVar Ball Stan Club, who says, Todd Reardon got fired. I'm excited. Over these playoffs, going to share some wisdom of the great LeVar Ball. I don't know his voice, so I'm sorry. Back in my heyday, I would kill Michael Jordan one-on-one. So what is the final score of Michael versus LeVar? I think LeVar would put up 2 points and Michael, or I think LeVar would put up but 2 points versus Michael over under. I'm also really high, so accept my weirdness. I was wondering where that sentence was going. I think Michael Jordan wins in 7.
I don't think LeVar gets a shot off.
Garrett TV says he's gone. Mike Milbury is frickin' gone. I'm sure.
We
forgot about Mike Milbury.
Oh, well,
as it should be.
Yeah, for real. I'm sure you already covered this, but it's worth bringing up again, maybe 2 or 3 more times even. Let's hope the change is permanent. Katie Strang's piece on Friday was so spot on. She deserves a lot of credit for Milbury's departure. She nailed it in a way that goes well beyond hockey. Everyone should have a read. I hope The Athletic makes the article free for everyone to view, but make no mistake that it never pays to be a closet misogynist and overall POS person. Honestly, Ferk him, good riddance. Hashtag sell on. Let's go Red Wings. Look, right. Mike Milbury has never said anything of use or benefit to a hockey broadcast. And my first thought, besides just like, shut the hell up, you asshole, after the comment made on air, I don't know how many days it was now, was think of how many good sports broadcasters there are waiting in the wings watching this total turd on air every time for NBC. I'm happy NBC made the right call and got rid of him. He's not even good at his job. He's just flat out not. Outside of being like saying shitty things like what he said, like being a general asshole. Like you don't like the comment, or for anyone who wants to defend the comment he made about women being distractions and minimizing it. First of all, no, but whatever. Look at the comments he called, like when he called PK Subban a clown for like dancing and having fun in warm-ups. Like the guy's not completely averse to just saying completely and totally boneheaded things, aside from the fact that he doesn't ever offer good analysis. He's so obviously just trying to do the inflammatory hockey guy thing. But like, You want to be inflammatory and give controversial opinions? Look at Brian Burke. I'm saying this and now that's not going to age well. But Brian Burke says things where I'm like, well, I disagree with you fundamentally about your hockey take, but you don't be a complete dickhead about it. We're all better at not having to hear Mike Milbury on air. That's my piece.
Brian Burke is one of the biggest gay rights activists in the entire NHL. So we literally only ever disagree with Brian Burke on hockey opinions. Mike Milbury, I disagree on just about every hockey opinion he has because he should be fired because he's terrible at his job. Misogyny aside, we have been complaining about this guy for a decade. A decade! You could replace him with a literal badger and it would be better than listening to Mike Milbury. We're watching a 5 overtime game 2 weeks ago. One of the greatest hockey experiences anybody can watch, especially when, the 5th overtime's at like 9 p.m. And he's complaining about how long it's going and that they need to go to 3-on-3 or a shootout. Like, if he clearly hates his job, so I don't even know why he's holding on to it if he hates a 5 overtime game. And yeah, because I commented about the situation and people were trying to minimize the comment in my replies. They're like, it wasn't even that bad of a statement. And it doesn't matter. It was a pretty tame statement compared to other crap he said in the past, which is a statement in and of itself. But 2 things. A, misogyny is misogyny. It doesn't matter how severe or not severe the comment is. It's still wrong. And 2, read the goddamn room. Holy shit, the world is melting down right now. Now is not the time to marginalize anybody. There's never a time you should do that, even less so now. Like, common goddamn sense. Jesus. The world is on fire with protests and arguments and splitting at the seams. Let's not add to it.
I'm laughing right now because I'm just picturing an actual badger in the background of a broadcast. Like, what a goal! And all you hear in the background is... I don't know what noise a badger makes. No, like, it's never the comment to make, and like, outside of the terrible thing it is to do to say that kind of thing as a human being, just business wise, why make that comment when you want to bring more women into the sport, when you want to make more women hockey fans because they make up half of the planet? Do you think Mike Milbury wants more women in hockey? No, he's very happy that half the population doesn't come and take his job. Well, it's going to happen soon. I'll tell you that, Mike.
It's got to happen real soon. And I hope they replace him with a woman. Give Kendall Coyne or anyone else. I don't care. Replace him with a her. I will. Top 10 hockey moment of the decade if it happens.
There's a reason we call our like anger segment the Mike Milbury Minute. It's mocking Mike. It's not celebrating him. Yeah. Michael Barry says, hope all is well. What does Lucas Raymond need to do in the SHL in order to be moved into the top 3 of the draft? Similar things can be asked about Holtz and Tim since European leagues are starting. Ooh.
Blazing hot start. His team is still stacked, so I'm not betting on him getting top 6 minutes, but if he gets more than 9 minutes a game, because his underlying numbers were fantastic, so he was creating offense, just not given a lot of time to do it. So if he sees 15 minutes a game in power play time, you'll start to see the conversations, but there won't be enough time because it's a week or 2 into the SHL season when the NHL draft starts. So I don't think it'll make a big difference either way, unless he literally has like a 7-goal game.
All I see is Gaines says, I felt the need to contribute, so here I am. Hey, new patron. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Call me All I See Is Dubs. Thanks for doing this and keeping me sane as a Red Wings fan can be in 2020. Any of you have hopes for Danny DeKeyser coming back and being a positive impact player for us next year? Anyways, stay salty. Let's go Red Wings. Oh, in a Pavel Datsyuk voice. Let's go Red Wings. I trust my eyes to Dr. Romani. You should too. If Danny DeKeyser is healthy, he's a positive impact player for Detroit.
Relative to the rest of the Red Wings.
To Detroit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's probably a healthy Danny DeKeyser is probably the second best defenseman on this team right now.
Oh, boy.
funny, like when he came to the team in 2013, we would have thought, oh, that means his career went great. And now it means everyone else's career has gone south.
This is definitely a case of the monkey's paw. I just let us sign him. We just need him to be a top 2 defenseman on this team.
I hate how accurate that is. That is absolutely. Oh no, we probably said something like that too. Wow.
Oh my God! If only he could be a top 2 defenseman. We got our wish.
Vincent Saladino says, so you guys have mentioned taking Louis Eriksson's contract from the Nucks and potentially getting Thatcher Demko in return. Personally, I feel as Demko's too high of a price and maybe DiPietro is a more likely get. Anyways, the reason I bring this up is what do you think would be a fair trade in this scenario? What would we have to give the Canucks to make this trade? I was thinking a low salary player like Perlini for Eriksson, but if goalies are involved in the trade, do you think Philip Larson would be someone we could move? Just spitballing here. I'd like to hear what you guys think. Keep up the great work, boys. I always look forward to whenever a new episode comes out. Adios. Thank you, Vincent. I tend to agree that Demko is a steep price, and it's not going to be that easy of a get. Demko seems to be one of the more popular names that comes up when we talk about like pie in the sky but realistic trades, and there's a reason Vancouver fans always respond with no. The Red Wings will either have to sweeten the pot for Vancouver by giving them something for their pipeline. Would they want Philip Larson? I wouldn't be averse to moving him.
I would be. I mean, the reason you're getting Thatcher, or you're angling for Thatcher Demko, is because the Red Wings goaltending pipeline is not good right now, and Demko is no guarantee. You need Larson in there because he's your top goaltending prospect, and you don't have a lot of good goaltending prospects.
You wouldn't do Larson and whatever warm body for Eriksson and Demko?
No, because we're doing Vancouver a favor taking Louis Eriksson off it. If we're, don't get me wrong, Demko better than Larson, but how big of a drop off is it from Demko to Larson, considering Larson's a lot younger, right?
Huge, because Larson's not an NHL goalie, and
we don't know Demko is for sure either yet.
What does he put up?
What's that?
What does he put up in his career so far?
Let me have a peek here. Thatcher Demko, 24 years old. And
didn't have a fantastic season last year, admittedly.
Put up a 905 in 27 games this year.
Those are Marc-Andre Fleury numbers. Sign them.
There you go. 913 last year in 9 games. So definitely by no means a write-off, but also definitely not a guarantee. And I am just trying to find Vancouver's salary cap space here because I want to know how much money they have for Jakob Markstrom, because that's the ultimate wild card right now for them. So
they literally have $30,000 in cap space right now.
Yeah, but
Tyler Toffoli's coming off, Chris Tanev coming off. That's about $9 million right there. And then
here we go.
Troy Stetcher is another little bit coming off.
So
Markstrom
they have
and Domingue are coming out, but they have to re-sign these guys, right?
So they have, about 16 million in space with only 16 contracts signed next year. So they're going to have to sign a lot of guys and average about 2 million per. And you got to think if they want to bring Markstrom and Toffoli back, that'll be over 10 million. So yeah, they're screwed.
All right. Evan Beckner says, so I finally began watching F1 Drive to Survive and just wow. I guess I'm an F1 fan now. Can't recommend it enough, guys. Seriously, it's a great show. If Road to the Winter Classic was half as good as this show, the NHL could get a ton of new fans. Someone tell Gary to call up Netflix. I was interested to see how much money the top 20 drivers in the world made and was actually surprised. Did you know that in 2019, Justin Abdelkader was paid more than Kimi Räikkönen? Also, in the same year, he was paid more than both drivers for McLaren combined. If you combine Haas, AlphaTauri, and Williams, they would be about $1 million less than Abdelkader's contract. Obviously, the big drivers are compensated greatly. Hamilton and Vettel both made over $40 million in 2019, but the fact that most of the top 20 drivers in the world make less than the 600th-ish best hockey player in the world blows my mind. So Formula One's a little funny. Yeah, the best drivers make the most. They make an insane amount from endorsements. This is a rich people's rich sport. Like, they race in Monaco every year. It's not like they're very well off. It's also one of those sports where, because it's a rich people sport, you have billionaires paying for their kids to get seats. And so they're not going to get paid a lot. And also when teams are bad, they don't sign good drivers. So they sign like cheap drivers a lot of the time. So, but yeah, it's super interesting. Lewis Hamilton's going to make like $60 million next year or something crazy like that. Bert Cruz says, "Hey gents, I'm wondering which Red Wings prospect were you the most excited about and certain they'd be a stud, but became a bust? Mine was Yurko. I was young and fooled by YouTube videos. He had the skill, hands, and decent size, and I thought he was going to be a top 6 for years, but never panned out." Did DeKaiser count? I know it's a cheap answer because he wasn't necessarily a prospect, but I was so certain about DeKaiser. I really was.
I thought for sure one of Pulkkinen or Furk would have been the answer to our power play woes. I thought for sure. Oops.
Third man in says, Brad is right, at least about retaping sticks. We're hockey players, not savages.
Thank you.
Tuck Frump says, "Hi, which NHL player either best fits their city or would best fit in a certain city? Think Marchand in Boston or how well Yager would fit in Vegas."
Marchand in Boston is the obvious answer. Lundqvist in New York, honestly.
Carey Price in Montreal, I think, makes a lot of sense.
No, he's a quiet reserve guy, and they're a loud, angry fan base.
He beat the shit out of someone with his blocker once, so
that's fair.
King Henrik in New York.
Sean Avery in Boston would have been something.
Oh my God. That would have been Marchand on steroids.
Tyler Seguin in Los Angeles.
A lot of players. Nikita Kucherov in Los Angeles.
Evgeny Kuznetsov in Vegas.
Oh, that's who I was thinking. Nah, not Kucherov, Kuznetsov. Player comparison question. Is Seider like a better Brad Stewart? Could be. That's not bad, actually.
I would hope a much better version of that, considering he was 6th overall. But no, it's all the good things about Brad Stewart, Moritz Seider has. We just hope he has more than that. More tools in the belt.
Last question. Is there a danger of overusing Detroit's cap space? If they go out and get bad picks for contracts or get picks for bad contracts, is there a chance players push Detroit up to 3rd or 4th worst, less than our already sad odd picks at 1st overall?
You have no idea how little I care about where we finish next season because of how stupid this draft lottery is. I know I'll change my mind on that come the season and logic will take over, but for now, I just don't care. And it depends on the contracts you take and what you're giving up, right? Like if we do send some spare parts over, like someone mentioned Perlini earlier, most of these players will be marginal upgrades. I can't see Detroit going out and taking a run at like a Tyler Johnson out of Tampa Bay to clear up cap space. I think they are going to take the Louis Ericssons of the world, guys who will be usable 4th, maybe 3rd liners, which means they'll play on Detroit's 2nd line. And it will be an upgrade over whoever they're likely replacing, but it's not going to move the needle enough to pull Detroit from like dead last to like a fringe playoff spot.
Also, Brad, I tuned out while you're saying that, so if you said this, I'm sorry. The moves are going to be rare. There's not going to be a lot of them available, so just by virtue of that. Alex Ott says, what do you think statistically are the ceilings for the players that Detroit would really realistically pick 4th this year? Let's say the list includes Stützle, Perfetti, Raymond, Rossi, and Drysdale. Thanks, boys, and stay safe.
I could legitimately see a top 10 player in their league at their position. I could see a world where Perfetti or Stützle are top 10 wingers in the world. Same with Raymond. I don't know if Rossi's upside's quite that high because he's a center and that'd be a little harder, but I could see it. Drysdale, I'm not as high on, but I could see it. It's a strong draft and there is a lot of potential there. Now, am I betting on any of these guys getting that high? No, of course not. But I'd say it's in the realm of possibility.
Matt says, hey guys, I got a question with a catch. The question is, your Steve Eisman and the league offers you a top 2 pick each year going forward until you decide to give up the deal. How many years do you do it? The catch is you're guaranteed last place each year and you can't bring up your top prospects to the NHL until you give up the deal. Do you damn the franchise and fans for 5 or 6 years to get an unprecedented core, or just try to get Shane Wright and then go for it?
I'd have to look at the draft past Shane Wright to really get an idea, because there's some kids coming up. I'm taking that deal for
I say 2 years and out.
I'm saying at least 3, because if it starts, like, does that include this draft?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 years. Stick around long enough to get Wright and get out, and then whoever we pick, Perfetti or Raymond.
Oh, no. Sorry, it doesn't include this draft. I mean, like, I said 2 as in going through the Shane Wright draft.
Oh, I'll say 3 then. After that, because I don't think a top 2 pick in Detroit next year is going to be a guy that needs to be rushed. That guy could probably use a couple more years, and then you get Wright, and then you get one guy after that. Yeah, that'd be my fun. Give me 3 top 2 picks, and then we'll bring everybody at once and win multiple cups.
Evan, what do you think?
Yeah, at least 3, I would say. That's what I was thinking.
Just Your Average Teej says, which would you guys rather do, golf or boat? Oh, if I'm driving the boat, golf. If I'm not driving the boat, boat.
Golf, no matter what the answer is for me.
Golf?
Yeah, Evan.
Hear something about golf?
Evan's trying to figure out a way to golf on a boat.
Carl Y says, where did Alan Walsh get the now infamous picture of Marc-Andre Fleury? Did he just get it commissioned for the purpose of tweeting it out? Wrong answers only. Ooh. Wrong answers only. Marc-Andre Fleury drew it himself.
He actually broke into Peter DeBoer's house to find it.
Wrong answers only. He actually stabbed Marc-Andre Fleury through the back with a sword. Evan's the one who painted it. He's the digital artist.
It would not look that good.
No. Adam Calsert says 2 things. 1, Evan, thank you for finally hanging up those picture frames that have been on your floor. 2.
Yeah, that's been a running joke in our house for 2 years.
2, I hate you guys, because now whenever I see Trebuchet memes, I read it as Trebucket. 3, what's in the picture frames, golf guy?
They are the Detroit Free Press front page of the last 4 Stanley Cups. I had to look back, make sure I wasn't bullshitting.
Joseph Fournier says, hey there, fellas. Here are my round 2 predictions. Knights over Canucks in 5. Dallas over Colorado in 6. Philly and Isles play a perpetual trap like icicle effigies dancing an endless waltz for eternity. The horror, Gritty cries, tightly clutching the ancient jeweled Ragnarok sword of our prophets. Braving the stinging snowstorm and crawling through the tundra, he ascends the shimmering steps upon the palace of Gattaca, bracing against the whipping winds in searing hall. With each step he fastens his grip and prepares to stab the Ragnarok sword into the sacred obelisk of time. He approaches the altar, raises the sword above his head, and brings it down in a shatterstorm of ice and light. It's done. No more neutral zone traps. No more. Bolts over Bruins in 6. Matt Whip says, hey boys, what websites do you guys use to get tape on prospects? Also, what would it take for the Wings to get Fleury's contract? You gotta Google. You have to just Google players at this point. Google, like, Shane Wright highlights YouTube. We used to use, what was it called? Prospect Shifts.
Yep. That was my Bible for a while.
Yeah, that went down. You can find clips floating around YouTube. Sometimes you find like weird blog sites. It sucks because it's not really as readily available, but teams kind of are guarded about this, as our draft organizations. Honestly, I would recommend checking out sites that do prospect analysis and rankings. They often offer a good amount of, like, not total clips, but they, like, if you're a paid subscriber, they'll provide a lot of video as well. So it's not an easy time doing it. And for the Wings to get Fleury's contract, I don't know. What's Vegas like next year? Are they in trouble?
Probably.
They might be able to get it for pretty cheap. Marc-Andre Fleury makes $7 million for 2 more years. Vegas will have to give up a good amount in my mind because that's a pretty hefty contract.
So let me find. Scrolling. All right. They have 17 contracts on the books for next year. So that's a low number. And they have $6 million cap space. They are royally screwed, but they also don't really need to re-sign anybody super important. So they have a lot of cap certainty next year. So they will need to fill out a lot of bottom of the lineup roster spots. But, so
they're gonna Perlini.
Yeah, there you
go. Denny O'Donnell, who's a new patron, thank you for supporting the show, says, new patron here. I've been a huge fan for a long time and consistently engaged on Twitter, but just now starting to help you guys out. Sorry it took so long, but here I am. Hey, don't apologize. We seriously really appreciate it. Thank you for keeping up the great work. I know it wasn't easy with the Red Wings sucking / no hockey through quarantine. Apologize if this was already asked, but what bad habit did you pick up during quarantine? For me, I'm 27 and hadn't had pop in 12 years. Thanks to the quarantine, I feel like I need a drink of pop at least once every day, specifically Sprite or Mountain Dew. No free ads. I think it came on after drinking beer almost every day at the start. Water wasn't cutting it anymore. What are your new bad habits? Ooh, I'm having a drink a night at this point, whether I need one or not. Like whether we're drinking to like have fun or just like having dinner, I'm having a drink, and not great when you're not moving around a lot. I'll tell you that.
Yep. Caffeine for me. It was caffeine. It's hard enough to build up energy on a normal day, but when you're not doing anything, like to drag yourself off the couch when your heart rate's down, nothing's happening, you're full sloth mode. Yeah. Not that I'm not a daily caffeine drinker yet, but more than I would like to.
You get there when the addictions comes.
So where I'm at now that, I'm back to work and it's not as bad as any day where I have an evening hockey game or gym session, which is only 2 or 3 times a week right now. Those days, as soon as I'm done work, I have to slam some back or else I'm not making it to 8, 9 p.m. to whatever I need
coffee
to do.
You're drinking?
No, not usually.
What is it?
I found the grocery store I go to carries this like it's like toasted vanilla Coke diet something or other. It's fucking delicious.
It's because the weirdest dude I know.
I don't know, man. I just grabbed it. I'm like, wow, that sounds amazing, and I grabbed it, and I'm like, yep, I'm hooked on this now.
Evan, what's your bad habit?
I sit in my computer chair for way too long, and then I go play golf or go to the range and wonder why my body hurts so bad.
He hasn't seen Cat since February.
That's also true.
Beer Juan Kenobi says, I'm just going to say it. 5 strips of white or black tape in the middle of the blade. Replace every other game. Shoot high and clap glass. Martin Firk had it right all along. Anyway, my brother came across some peanut butter whiskey at the Big C discount store. It's real tasty. Sticks in the air and yell for 1 T, boys. Peanut butter whiskey does sound good. I don't know why, but that sounds really good.
I do not want peanut butter ruined for me, so I will never try that.
B Nags, we're going to some Reddit questions here. B Nags says, if Seider and Zegras were in this year's draft class, where would you rank them? In this scenario, let's pretend that Seider still played in Mannheim and had a great year like he did in Grand Rapids.
Seider would probably be around 9 to 10 for me. Zegras 1 spot ahead of him.
That's tough. I think of the world. I think Seider would be the Sanderson incumbent this time, and I think Sanderson would be bumped down. I don't know. Let's say Seider had a year like he did in Grand Rapids. I think you would have a lot of people talking about Seider as a top 5 pick as a stretch, but you'd have people looking for that defensive stability with potential offensive upside. I don't know about Zegras. I wouldn't put him too far behind Holtz.
I don't know if I would put him behind Holtz.
Right? Like, I still think Zegras is an elite playmaker. I think Zegras slots behind Raymond for sure. I think he slots behind Rossi. Is Zegras worse than Perfetti as a prospect?
I think I'm higher on Perfetti than I was Zegras, but it's not by a lot.
I sometimes worry that coming around on Perfetti is just because we know it's a likely outcome. And so it's a little bit of confirmation bias.
I am really trying to take that out of my equation. So what I've been doing is watching him and then watching another forward directly in the same bubble as him in the draft rankings right after. Like, I'm trying to bring myself down. Like, so if I watch a clip, a game, or whatever, and I go, wow, that was really good, I'll immediately go and watch Raymond or Rossi or whoever just for context.
SVenti04 asked about goaltending hypotheticals with salary dumps, which we talked about, but we appreciate the question. Russell18 says, I remember when you did the 2019 draft, you did a great segment where you discussed if you could add a trait to each player to improve their game. What trait would you add to the player's projected top four to make that pick an absolute slam dunk? That's a fantastic question. We'll do it quickly now, but I think we'll revisit that one as well.
Okay, Lafreniere, I'm rebuilding him a new ankle, so his north-south speed's a little better. Quentin Byfield, I'm upping his creativity. Tim Stützle, I am making him 20 pounds heavier.
I was going to say better shooter.
Yeah, that too. Lucas Raymond, north-south skating. Marco
Perfetti
Rossi.
speed. Give Perfetti speed and he's a top 3 pick.
Yep, absolutely. Same with Rossi, truthfully.
Give Rossi 4 inches of height and some weight added to it.
Drysdale, I would give...
Defensive ability?
Nah, I'm trying to think. How do you...
A shot. It's either a shot or defensive ability.
To be a little more dynamic in the offensive zone, however you want to quantify that.
Yeah, give him a shot then, because he's an excellent playmaker. He can gain the zone. He can skate. He's just not a premier shooter.
I'm going to say lateral skating. I want to see him make better cuts in the offensive zone. I'm going to go with that.
You're Bite you know that?
Bite me.
Han Solo Mail says, why will the Canucks upset Vegas and win the cup? Because of Quinn Hughes, and we'll never hear the end of it. And HZ40 says, 2 questions. How much would it cost Evan to sign Evan as a UFA? And who do you think should replace our assistant coaches once changes are made behind the bench to enhance our power play and penalty kill? I don't pretend to know the assistant coaching market. There's just too many guys available. And especially people like there's coaches like, young men and women who are coming through the ranks who are in like the NCAA and the OHL and overseas. And people tend to be a little bit more exploratory with assistant coaches than head coaches. We couldn't possibly tell you who that would. I don't have any preference in my mind. Whoever the head coach wants, because that would make the head coach most comfortable, I should say.
Paul McLean, Bill Peters, and Todd McClellan.
Our Twitter question from Iserbaz is, what is the optimum bad contract to hoover up? That's our local Scott. To weaponize the cap space. How much cap space is there realistically after the RFAs are signed? There's a world of cap space, because who are the RFAs that the Red Wings have to worry about?
There's a ton of them, but other than Bertuzzi, Fabry, and Mantha, nobody's significant.
What's the upper end of, like, what's that going to cost at absolute most? 15, 16 million?
It's a nightmare if that's what it costs, because
that's like the
if you go like
most.
8 for Mantha, 5 for Bertuzzi, 3 for Fabry, that's like 16.
Yep. And there's, I don't know, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of room. We've talked a lot about what contracts are optimal. I don't think people have to worry about not having enough space for those contracts. I think you more have to worry about the scarcity of GMs willing to make those deals. GMs are going to be horrified. They're not going to want to make those kinds of deals because they already have to make those kinds of deals with Seattle in next year's expansion draft. And they thought they'd be able to get away from that, but now with these financial restrictions, they're going to have to do the same thing.
But Detroit could solve some of these Seattle problems preemptively.
It's very like mob shakedown, like come pay us to protect you kind of thing.
Exactly.
Anyways, before Evan gets too far down the rabbit hole on the internet that he's on, Evan's doing the game on Wikipedia right now called Clicks to Jesus, where you click a random article on Wikipedia and you see how many clicks it takes you to get to Jesus's Wikipedia page. Or more famously and a little bit easier, clicks to Evan. You're on way more. You're hyperlinked on a lot more of those, Evan.
Yes. Thank you.
Took you too. Anyhow, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Winged Wheel podcast. We'll be back with you midweek. Patrons, check out the Upper Deck Hockey giveaway. Stay tuned for more. We'll be doing plenty more Patreon exclusive hockey or Upper Deck hockey card giveaways. We're going to be doing pack openings, things like that, as well as broader competitions for all listeners. So stay tuned. Thank you all so much for supporting the show. We'd like to thank all of our listeners, the people who have given us those amazing 5-star reviews on iTunes. Does the world for us. All of our name level sponsors on Patreon, the septic tank of that bitch Carol Baskins, Arjun Shanker, Greach, Jeremiah Dobo, Jake Kiefer, LeVar Ball Stan Club, Brad Smith, Andrew Bohan, Scott Martin, Jacob Turner, Matt McKay, Brandon M, Matthew M Rice, Luke Johnson, Kaylin Wood, Hassam Al-Qassem, Charlie Elkins, Hana Lee, Obeer Juan Kenobi, Trevor Pavlovar, Alex Ott, Ashley Van Conant, Chris Frank, Connor Leightonen, Matthew Keeler, Simon Anderson, Antonio Gracias, John Evans, Quaz, and Stan Olsen. Thank you all. Until midweek. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockey Town Evan.